This is TWiT.
Samsung revealed the Galaxy S10 yesterday. Jason and Leo did their astute commentary about all the announcements. But today we get to talk to Mark Spoonauer, who's had a Galaxy S10 review unit for a bit, and he has some thoughts. Welcome back to the show, Mark.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hello.
Great.
So first, was there anything yesterday that we didn't already know about the phone before the announcement?
Given all the leaks and everything else, this is probably like the worst leaked or biggest leaked phone in history, right? So there were very little in the way of surprises. It was nice to see that the 5G version is going to be real and is coming to multiple carriers. It's going to be on Verizon first. So that was nice to see. I think the biggest surprise was that they led with the Galaxy Fold.
Yeah.
Given the fact that that's not coming out until April, we were talking with some of my colleagues, and some people said that it actually sort of like stole their own thunder, if that makes sense, in terms, because like, oh, there's like, here's this amazing foldable phone, and then, oh yeah, we have this S10 to announce.
I think what I found interesting about that, a couple of things. First of all, if this was an Apple event, if this was an iPhone event, they probably would have saved the Fold for the end, right?
Yep.
That would have definitely been the one more thing. So Samsung loves to kind of mold, in many ways, loves to kind of mold its approach to Apple. That was very like anti-Apple or opposite of Apple. And second, what was the second? It was, I blanked on the second one.
Was it just that it's $2,000 and it's not a consumer product, but then of course everybody's really sort of talking about it as if it's a consumer product?
Well, they even pointed it out as being a luxury item. So even they were willing to accept the fact that not everybody's going to want to buy this, even though it looks really cool.
Yeah, it may be for like the 1% or maybe 2%. But remember, when you think about, I think like the top spec Galaxy S10 with all the storage and everything else, like comes out to $1,600. So it's not that huge of a leap to go to something like this. So I don't know. So again, I actually think they're going to sell out of them. There's probably going to be a limited run device. It's sort of executive jewelry. And I think it's really more of a statement piece. Like when you think of it like in terms of like a car dealership, this is like the sort of thing like it's supposed to have like a halo effect for the brand. It gets people talking about Samsung as an innovator. And I think they did that. But to your point, there was an audible groan in the theater when they dropped the price. So, and we promoted it on Reddit as well. And like the first comment that I got back, I can't really say like all the words that were in it, but it was something about the price being something stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, but at the same time, this is a new technology. I think we have to wait. This is the first of its kind, or at least the first good one of its kind, probably. So all this technology is going to trickle down at some point to more mass market price points.
Yeah, a couple of years from now, all of our phones will be foldable. I remembered where I was headed was how incredibly leaked the S10 was, but how not leaked at all the Fold was, which. Right. You know what I mean? Like we knew that the Fold was coming at this announcement, primarily because Samsung made it known as much that they said we'll unfold for you. They gave enough clues that made it certain, but we really didn't know very many details. Yet we knew everything about the S10, which Leo and I on yesterday's kind of play-by-play during the live event just kind of realized like that seems to indicate that Samsung is controlling a lot of these leaks, right? You know what I mean? Like they're willing to accept the fact that the S10 gets out there, drum up support. Obviously, that's their big flagship product. But when they want to withhold it and keep a good secret, they can. They proved that with the Fold.
Yeah, I mean, when you think back to the announcement of the Infinity Flex display, which was the first time they showed off the technology, the design was purposely camouflaged. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So we really didn't know what the design looked like or how thin or thick it was or necessarily how it worked. Although we did know that there's going to be, it would support 3 apps on the screen at the same time. And they did introduce this idea of app continuity, where you'd have something on the smaller display that would then fold up to something bigger. But as far as the design and how it worked and the mechanics of the hinge and that sort of thing, you're right. All of that was a surprise in a nice sort of way yesterday.
So what do you think about the S10? You've had it for a little bit. Who's the phone for?
Well, it actually depends on which one you go with, right? So the S10e, I would say, is more for the iPhone XR customer or the alternative to that because it starts at the same price at $749, right? And I would say it's actually a pretty good deal because you get an OLED display, not the LCD that the iPhone XR has, and a pretty powerful Snapdragon 855 processor. We put up our first benchmark post yesterday. This is a look at the S10. Let's get it close to the frame here. This is the S10 Plus. So you can see like that has the dual cameras up there in the corner. So that's so far so good with our testing around that. I'm going to do the battery test tonight. And the most pleasant surprise so far is the camera. So I only have like a few samples, but we're doing a comparison versus the Pixel 3. That'll be live tomorrow. And that's one of the areas that Samsung has been behind the competition, and that's camera, especially in low light. And so far, we're very pleasantly surprised. It looks like they've upped their game when it comes to the camera, which I think was necessary.
Did you get a chance to take a close look at the ceramic versions, or is that one of the ceramic versions? I'm very curious to see because that sounds pretty glossy and nice.
Yeah, so this is the white version.
Okay.
So it's not ceramic. So this is like the more affordable $9.99 version of the S10.
Oh, affordable for everyone.
So yeah, it is going to be coming in multiple colors. Some are actually reserved for the UK. Some are US only. So it's a little bit confusing. So we have a guide on Tom's Guide right now. But yeah, the ceramic version, I think it's supposed to stand out because it's more durable than regular glass. And it actually does make more of a style statement as well. But I think people are going to be, I think they'll be impressed by the camera quality and the overall performance gains that Samsung has made. But I think to a certain degree, the biggest headlines of the day were 5G, which is not the 5G version is not coming until later. Yeah. And you have the Galaxy Fold, which is not coming until April. So they have this really tricky balancing act where they have these exciting announcements. And then they have, here's our regular S10 lineup, which is when it comes to their revenue is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so those back cameras, that little long rectangle, has that been on previous Galaxy phones, or is that new?
So this is new, and what's the newest thing about it is the third camera, and what we have there is a ultra wide angle lens, which is a first for a Samsung phone. And what I like about that is it gives you more shooting flexibility. So, for example, I was taking some shots outside today, and it really helps you like take a step back and get more dramatic results. So you can take your pick between the regular shot, a 2x optical zoom, or ultra wide. So that's really versatile when it comes to shooting. And the other big difference on the S10 Plus is that it has the two front-facing cameras, so it gives you the ability to do better bokeh and other effects that Samsung has thrown on top.
Is one of those front-facing cameras wide as well? Because I know some manufacturers, that's what they do with the other camera on the front, get a wide so you get a kind of a wide-angle selfie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So you can fit more in the frame, which is, which I think is a welcome thing.
What about 12 gigs of RAM? I feel like every year, I mean, and this is just the way it works, but 12 gigs has to be like the ceiling, right? Like this has to be the ceiling in modern terms as far as RAM on a smartphone. I've never seen it this high. Did Samsung take any time to describe the needs that might surround 12 gigs of memory on your phone? Like what could possibly use that? That's a desktop class memory, Well,
I could tell you one thing that'll use it, Geekbench.
Okay. All right.
Yes. There is a specs war, I think, to a certain degree for benchmarks and that sort of thing. But a lot of people talk about the ability to run multiple apps at the same time, which I think is good. But I think Android software has gotten to the point where it's pretty good, where you can juggle multiple apps without having to worry about whether or not you have enough RAM. So I think we're going to have to wait and see. The version that we have is 128 gigs of storage and 8 gigs of RAM, so we don't have the 12 gigs. But
only 8 gigs of RAM? Meanwhile, that's as large as almost anything else on the market. So
yeah, and actually standard for a premium laptop.
Yep. That's unbelievable. But I guess also when you're talking about Samsung did a good job of emphasizing kind of the AI smarts of the camera, and this is just the direction that they've all been heading, right? Like we've already got the cameras looking amazing. Now let's make them smarter. And at that point, having a better processor under the hood, having more RAM for it to play with could come in really handy. It's speeding up all of that stuff and making it more impressive.
Yeah, no, I think the AI, the scene recognition that they're doing is pretty good. It's faster than it was on the Galaxy Note 9, and now it does 10 extra scenes And I also think they deserve credit for the integration that they're doing with Instagram, the fact that you could just sort of slide over and have an Instagram mode directly in the camera. So, one of the areas where Samsung has fallen behind is sort of the ecosystem factor versus Apple. So it was nice to see them highlighting some of the developers on stage yesterday. Mm-hmm. And that also included Adobe with the Premiere Rush video editing app.
Right.
What about the fingerprint sensor? How does that compare to Face ID or to the fingerprint sensor on the Pixel?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit of an adjustment because I'm used to using Android phones where, I reach around the back with my finger. So, but so far so good. I think they've done a nice job with the design. It's fast. I would say it's as fast, if not a little bit faster than Face ID. And you don't have to necessarily power on the screen first. You could just sort of tap the screen to wake it up. And if your finger is already in the right spot, boom, you're already into the device. So I think they've done a nice job with it. And the fact that it is ultrasonic as opposed to optical, it's a little bit nerdy, but the idea is that it's more accurate because it creates a 3D map of your finger as opposed to just a picture. So it's supposed to be more secure and more accurate. So far, so good. I don't think they necessarily need all of these other things that they've been trying, like iris recognition and face recognition, but they're still there if you want it.
Samsung likes its bells and whistles. They kind of all feel like the need to include those. They feel like that's what the market's looking for. What about One UI? Because this is kind of a new, a lot of people are saying that this is Samsung's best UI for its devices. Maybe that's because it's the latest one, but that it's cleaner, it's more simple. How does that fare on the S10?
You know what? I'm of two minds about it. I think in the settings menu, it's definitely welcome that it's more streamlined. But if you guys actually take a look at the home screen here, let me just face it towards you. One of the things that I don't like is that some of the icons, can you actually make it out here? Let's see.
A little bright. I think the reflection from the windows kind of blocking it a little bit. There you go.
That's
there you
good.
go.
Yeah, so one of the things that I don't like is that it's just a little bit like my first smartphone in some respects. So it makes it more user-friendly, but some of the icons are just, I don't know, there's just something that feels a little bit like play school about it. But I do applaud them for, the less is more streamlining that they've done with One UI. But I also think that they haven't gone far enough. Why do we still need two browsers when I load up my phone for the first time? Or why do I need a gallery app when Google Photos is already there? So I think they could go even further in terms of just making it closer to stock Android.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you think this is the kind of phone that's going to make someone switch from the Pixel or, God forbid, switch from the iPhone? Or is it going to be mostly people who just love the Galaxy and they upgrade and they're going to just decide whether they're, going to upgrade to this or not?
I think the biggest opportunity that they have is people who are on the fence between the Pixel and the S family, right? Because they've upped their game when it comes to the camera. And I think based on our test results, they may even surpass the Pixel 3 with the exception of very low light. The night sight mode on the Pixel 3 is just amazing to the point where it's not really real. But people who have been waiting to upgrade their S7 or S8 or S6, I think the S10 will be a welcome upgrade. And I think every other Android manufacturer is, at least those in the US, are in trouble. I think LG in particular with the G8, I think they're going to have a hard time, especially if it's at $900, because that's basically in the same ballpark. Mm-hmm. But I do think overseas, Huawei and Xiaomi and others like that are pushing the envelope on their own. And I think that they're continuing to put the pressure on Samsung in a good way because they're being forced to innovate.
Mark Spoonauer is the editor-in-chief of Tom's Guide. You can read his full review also with Caitlin McGarry at tomsguide.com. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, thanks for having me.
We appreciate it.